I was originally hired to do the storyboards for Masters of the Universe. I had been a production designer on an ill-fated Godzilla project I'd worked on for 2 years, and then I was the production designer on The Return of the Living Dead, which has become a huge cult horror film. But I started working for Canon Films on Invaders from Mars, designed the Martians themselves, plus the world that they lived in. And I got hired to do the storyboards for Masters of the Universe. Hi, I'm William Stout. I was the production designer on Masters of the Universe. Had a great time, and we're going to tell some stories. Gary Goddard, the director, he and I hit it off really well. We had a lot in common. For instance, if he told me to Kirby something up, I knew he meant to make it look a little bit more like Jack Kirby, the guy who created most of the Marvel superheroes. So we had a shorthand going between us. In between some of the storyboards I was also doing some of the costume design, and Gary just loved my work. Our production designer was Jeffrey Kirkland. He was a Brit, and he and Gary butted heads. They did not see eye to eye on most of the things that was going on. Gary was a tremendous pitch man. He could sell ice to Eskimos. The guy was amazing. And there was one day where he was taking all of the Mattel brass around and showing them the progress on the film. He was saving the best for last, which was the art department. That's the frosting on the cake. And he took them into our room, the art department room, and they were just marveling at all the art that was being produced for their movie. And after his presentation, he turned to Jeffrey for affirmation, and Jeffrey barely looked up. He looked up a little bit, and he said, "It's not gonna be too fucking awful." Well, that burst that balloon. And about 2 weeks later, Jeffrey decided to leave the film, and he recommended that I take over as production designer, which I did. It was amazing because I came into work, it was 10 a.m. I was told I was the new production designer, and by noon I was getting phone calls from all over Southern California congratulating me on becoming the new production designer for Masters of the Universe. There were people in the biz finding that out before my own family knew, which just shows you what a small, tight community Hollywood is. It was just extraordinary. But I hit the ground running, took off, and I hired Robert Howland to be my art director. He was my art director on The Return of the Living Dead, and he was just a fantastic, very funny guy, super smart, and off we went. For those of you who don't know what a production designer is, a production designer is the eyes of the film. He is responsible for everything you see on the film except for the performances of the actors. So as production designer, I was in charge of all the makeups, the special effects makeups, the sets, the costumes, the props, the set dressing, everything you see on the screen except for the performances of the actors. So since I'd been a production designer before, I knew the system of how to go about doing my work. First I read the script, then I read the script again and start making notes on what needs to be designed. And then I look at the scheduling. Obviously the stuff that's going to be shot first needs to be designed first. And my job is to make sure that everything gets done on time and on budget. I inherited the job of production designer fairly early in the production. And so basically I ended up designing the entire motion picture. So personally, I did 130 pieces of art to design that motion picture. That was quite the challenge. We were working for Canon Films, which is known for their frugality, but I believe this was probably the biggest budget film that Canon ever produced. It was also their last film that they ever produced. I was familiar with the Masters of the Universe toys. I was not impressed by the toys because to me they looked cheap. And I thought that each character should have distinctive body parts and armor and weapons. And so I decided to push the look of the film in that direction. I wanted everything to look original. I really did not like the look of He-Man. He looked like a cast-off member of ABBA. And so fortunately at that time, a really dear friend of mine was living and working in Santa Monica. His name was Jean Giraud. He's also known by the pseudonym Mobius. And so I would take some of the hardest jobs on the film and just toss them Mobius's way, and we would collaborate and work and solve these really difficult problems. One of the first things I tossed his way was redesigning He-Man, and he came up with a spectacular version of that. One of the ideas I loved about what he came up with is he said, well, they're having a world civil war on Eternia, and so He-Man is picking up shrapnel and armor and stuff that's just laying on the battlefield and strapping it to his body. And I thought that's a cool idea for a way to show how he arms himself. Mattel didn't go for that. I pushed hard, but they wouldn't buy that. So we had to compromise on that. Evelyn, I had designed her. She was inspired by the female character in Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard. And we were really lucky in having Meg play Evelyn. She took the role very seriously. I thought she gave a fantastic performance. The one thing I regret is in my initial designs for Evelyn, she had a full head of bushy hair, and Gary made me cut her hair, and he admits now that was a big mistake, because to me, long hair on a female, that's a sign, it's a sort of a parallel of female power, and I hated to see that disappear. But she was a good sport about it, and she did a great job. Also, Frank Langella as Skeletor was phenomenal. He took that role very seriously. In fact, to this day, he says that's his favorite role of his entire career. And I think it is his performance and Evelyn's performance that really make that film work. Another actor I really enjoyed working with on the film was Billy Barty. Billy Barty was in the original Wizard of Oz. He was one of the Munchkins, the baby Munchkins in the bird nest in the beginning of the film. And every day I was on set. I'm a hands-on production designer. I like to make sure that everything is going smoothly and that everything is going on time and on budget. And every day I'd feel a little tug on my coat, and I'd turn around, it was Billy. He'd have a new joke for me every day. Love that guy. He was also, I knew him because growing up in Los Angeles, he was a kiddie show host. He used to host a cartoon show called Billy Barty's Cartoon Circus, and he dressed up like a circus ringmaster and show cartoons. So he had quite a sort of visual history in Los Angeles. There was one actor on Masters of the Universe that I worked with on another film. The very first screenplay I ever sold was The Warrior and the Sorceress, which I sold to Roger Corman. And there was a character in there played by Anthony DeLongis, who is a sword master, and he staged all the sword fighting for that film. Well, he also played Blade in Masters of the Universe, and he staged the sword fights for Masters of the Universe as well. Julie Weiss was our costume designer. I ended up actually designing most of the costumes, but she came up with a great idea for Beastman. If you look at Beastman's trousers, they have handprints on the trousers. And her idea was that Skeletor's crew that he was sort of drafting to fight He-Man, and the Beastman was about to leave his people to go fight with Skeletor, and his generals all put their handprints on his trousers to give him their power. And I thought that was a brilliant idea on Julie's part. Also, the Sorceress was really interesting. Mobius came up with a great idea for the Sorceress, which did not get used. She was a 12-year-old girl. I thought that's a really cool idea, because that is not what you expect a sorceress to look like. Mattel would not go for that. Sorod turned out to be one of the favorite villains. Unfortunately, he got killed early in the film, and people really regretted that. But I designed every aspect of Sorod, including the contact lenses for his eyes. Also, I came into work one day, and people said, okay, where are the designs for the contest winner? I go, contest winner? What are you talking about? Yeah, Mattel had a contest, and the kid who won the contest, he gets to be in the movie. I go, no one told me about that. And so suddenly I said, well, we're shooting him at noon. And I'm going, well, it's 10 o'clock now. Oh, okay, hang on. 20 minutes, I designed his costume, designed his makeup, and I gave it to my production assistant, Josh, and I said, okay, make copies of these, give these to Julie, the costume designer, give these to the makeup guy, tell them we're shooting this at noon. So the name of the character was Matai Shai, but because of the way I designed him, he later became colloquially known as Little Pig Boy. One of the big challenges was the budget was not big enough for the film. So I had to be very, very clever in dealing with that. We had a scene that takes place on Eternity. It's the communications room. Well, we didn't have enough money for a full set. So what I did is I took a one wall set. We had enough money for a wall. And then I bent the ends of the wall so it made it look like we were looking at part of a huge room, when actually it was just one wall with the two ends bent. Also, we needed to do a rear projection of the universe on the back wall, but we didn't have enough throw behind that to project it. So what I did is I storyboarded the entire sequence so that we could film it in such a way that the characters enter the scene by placing the camera high so that they didn't break the screen that we were using. We had enough throw to do a front projection behind them as long as they didn't break the scene overhead. And by storyboarding that, I also specified that they use a 50mm lens, so I chose the proper lens for that scene, and it was a way to make sure that, well, basically fool the public into thinking we had enough money for a big, huge communications room. There was also a big machine in there. Well, we didn't have enough money to create a brand new machine, so I took an existing film truck and designed a shell to go on it, so I didn't have to come up with any of the mechanics. They were already in the vehicle itself, and that all worked out great. Well, I couldn't make Castle Grayskull look like the toy because it would look like a toy. It had to be convincing, had to be realistic. I did probably a dozen different designs until we finally settled on the design that was chosen for the film. And then it went into the hands of Boss Film, and they did all the special effects to make it fit within the look of the motion picture. One day, we were all working away on the film, and the Mattel brass was coming through, and they walked into the art department, and they were very excited, and they're pointing to the pictures on the wall. Oh, that's gonna make a great toy. Oh, that's gonna be a fantastic toy. Oh, that's gonna be a great toy. I said, gentlemen, we were hired to design the motion picture. We were not hired to design your next year's toy line. We need to renegotiate. And a shockwave went through these guys, and they realized that they looked at the contracts that we had signed, and Canon had just given us simple one-page contracts. Had nothing to do with toy royalties. And so we demanded that we get royalties from the toys that we were designing of the new characters. Mattel threatened to shut the film down 8 different times. We just kept working away because we had the power in our hands and in our attorney's hands to do that. I was really interested and really invested in doing that because I'm constantly trying to think of ways to improve the lives of artists and designers for films. And this was a real breakthrough. This was the very first time the designers of a film got compensated with royalties from the creatures and characters and settings that they designed.
What was the most rewarding part about working on this project? I mean, did you have fun on this project and creating?
I really did have fun on the project. The most rewarding part was we needed a big set for the huge throne room, and we were working at Laird Studios, which used to be Selznick Studios, which before that was RKO Studios, which is where they shot King Kong and Citizen Kane, 2 of my favorite movies of all time. And so I took 2 adjoining sound stages and knocked out the wall between them and came up with the biggest set that Hollywood's seen in about 40 years. Everybody in the business wanted to see this gigantic set, and we were visited by actors, movie stars, film directors. Everybody wanted to have their picture taken on the throne, which is the seat of power to the entire universe. The new Masters of the Universe is going to have CG. It's got a big budget, and ours didn't have CG because it wasn't invented yet. I'm eager to see it. I hope they have a good script. See what happens.
Show's over. Come back tomorrow.